What is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 28 of the Real Estate Take podcast, and I'm your host, Wendell Butler. This is your go-to podcast with tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where you get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Nick Prefontaine. At 14, Nick suffered a traumatic, life-threatening snowboarding accident and was put in a coma. His parents were told he wouldn't ever walk, talk, or eat on his own again. He did and set a personal goal of not walking, but running out of the hospital. Nick does a lot of speaking work to help those suffering from brain injuries, and today, Nick is a seven-figure business owner, Rhode Island-based real estate investor, speaker, and partner of Smart Real Estate Coach. So let's bring in Nick. Hey, Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Wendell. I'm excited for this conversation. I think we're going to have some fun.
Absolutely. And it's awesome to hear that story. And I'm excited to get to know you more and also allow the audience to get to know you more as well. That's a huge thing to overcome. And I kind of just want to start there because it's a lot to unpack. And we'll dive into just learning more about that, how you overcame it, and kind of your backstory of what got you into real estate. So just start there with us. It's an amazing story. So I want to hear more about it as well.
Sure, Wendell. Yeah, no problem. So it all goes back to that fateful day in 8th grade when I was at ski club with my friends. And my friends and I had, we were the select few, the select lunatics, if you will, who brought our snowboard gear onto the bus to get ready so we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain. So we got to the mountain and all the rest of the class migrated inside to waste time getting ready. Not us. We were ready to go. So we had a break for the chairlift. And on the chairlift ride up, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining earlier. However, that didn't slow us down. So the chairlift, where it went right over the terrain park where all of the jumps were. And I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump in the terrain park. Got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. And going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, which threw me off balance. And that's the last thing that I remember. So I was told that I landed on my head and I wasn't wearing a helmet. Later, I learned that the only protection that my head had was a pair of goggles. And I wore some really thick goggles with a lot of padding. So not only did they brace my initial impact, as I continued to roll down the mountain and continued to hit my head, they moved to cushion each blow between my head and the ice and the mountain. So there's always three things that I credit for being able to be here with you today, you and your listeners, and be able to tell this story. That's the first one. Second, they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital. They couldn't because it was too windy, so they had to send in an ambulance. And out of all the paramedics in the area, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. So lucky for me that day, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. There are still several things about that day and about my accident that I still don't know. I'm still piecing the details together. However, I know that the most important thing is I'm here today to be able to tell this story. So no matter the severity of your crisis, your decision to take action is your first step. After I got to the hospital, listen, I was out. I was out for the count. I was in a coma, unable to communicate with anyone. And the doctors, actually, the only people allowed in my room were my parents. So again, I was out for the count and my parents were the only people in my room. The doctors, no fault of their own, they were just doing their job, came into my room to share the not so good news, not so good news, not so good news. I'm sure you or any of your listeners can appreciate the fact if they've ever had a traumatic experience or ever had an acute injury, the doctors can't paint a rosy picture. They have to give you the worst case scenario. The doctors, no fault of their own, started to share right in front of me, and my mom stopped and she said, no, not in front of him, because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. Yeah. So she made the doctors step outside the room, and that's where they shared that I probably wasn't going to be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. Even if I came out of my coma, there was a good chance that I would need 24-hour care for the rest of my life. And they didn't accept this. My parents didn't accept this as a death sentence like so many patients do. They took the information, thanked the doctors, and allowed me to treat it like any other situation. So this, in their eyes, was no different than any other challenge that I had faced up to this point in my life. So what this enabled me to do, all that outside noise, if you will, that didn't come through to me, whether unconsciously or subconsciously. I still to this day confuse the two, but either one of those, whatever it is, didn't get through my mind. So what this allowed me to do was just treat it like any other situation. I was in a coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma. And a month later, I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where I began my journey. And that's where I had to start my journey of learning how to walk, talk, and eat again. So I can remember early on in my recovery, I was still in a wheelchair. And if at best, my voice was a whisper. I was mouthing words or it was a whisper. And I can remember being in my room and overhearing my parents talking with the doctors and therapists. And they were saying, okay, what do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? I heard in the back of my head, you're going to run out. So then I was able to run out of the hospital, that is. So I was able to communicate that to the rest of the team. That became our common goal. And that's where one of my companies, that's where the name comes from, Common Goal. It was right around this time that I started to unknowingly use a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And that's what I teach to this day with one-on-one work with clients, with the STEP video series, and then my keynotes, several versions of keynote talks that I have. So STEP is an acronym. What I can do, Wendell, is just give a 10,000 foot view of the system. And then if anyone's interested, if your listeners are interested at the end, I can let them know how they can download the entire STEP system for free today. STEP is an acronym. It stands for support. So make sure that you have the support of your family and friends right from the beginning. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you. And this also starts with trusting that voice that you have inside of yourself. And I'll share a little bit later how that voice also came back later in my life and led me to what I'm doing today. So E is energy. So maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And medication has the potential to get in the way of that. This is the best way that I can illustrate energy, how it fits within the STEP system. So right around that same time, after I was transported to the rehab hospital, I was still in a wheelchair. I still wasn't cleared to walk yet. And I would always have someone with me during the day. It was my mom and her parents, my grandparents. And then at night, I would have my dad or one of my uncles or my grandfather, Bub, stay with me. And I can remember this particular night. It was before I was cleared to walk. And I got up in the middle of the night, Wendell, and I had to go to the bathroom. Well, I wasn't cleared to walk yet, so I had to get someone's attention to bring me to the bathroom so I didn't fall. And I remember leaning over my bed and saying, Bub, Bub. And I'm just doing this right now so you can hear me for the podcast, but it was just a whisper. And he didn't hear me. So I was able to get up and make it to the bathroom safely. Nothing happened and get back. Well, the hospital found out the next day and they freaked out. You can't have this liability. What we're going to do is give him this many cc's of this medication, that many cc's of this other medication before bed, and that should calm him down so he's able to sleep throughout the night. So my mom heard this and she said, no, you're not. Just ask him not to do that. He asked me not to do that and nothing ever happened. Thank goodness. Thank God. P is persistence. So once you take your first step every day and taking your next step, keep getting up no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum. So if you fast forward less than 60 days later, I realized my goal of running out of the hospital. And it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored 5 days a week in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And this is kind of where the real estate fits in. So it's a little surreal to me that only 18 months later, I got my start in real estate. So I grew up in a family real estate business, if you will. I mean, when I was little, my dad was a builder, then a realtor, then an investor, and like all bouncing all those fields throughout my life. So right around the time that I was getting my driver's license, I was just getting my learner's permit and just getting my driver's license. Him and his team were playing with the idea. He had an investment company at the time. They were playing with the idea of having a bird dog go and knock on doors of people that pre-foreclosure doors or homeowners that had received the notice of default letter from the bank. And it was perfect for me because I was just getting my driver's license. So I volunteered and said I'd love to do that. And then what sparked that is I picked up a book off my parents' bookshelf, and that was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. So everyone hears about Rich Dad Poor Dad, but that wasn't the book that kind of started me. It was Cash Flow Quadrant. So I picked that up, started reading it, and then I came to him saying, hey, I want to start to get involved in the business and everything. And that's how he came up with the idea of me door knocking. And it was not a straight upward climb of success. I definitely faced a lot of doors slammed in my face, a lot of rejection.
Oh yeah.
At the beginning. That's not a bad thing though. Rejection is not a bad thing. I think it was the best sales training that I could have had, even if I engineered it, even if I went to top level schools and everything. Door-to-door sales is the best sales training. You gotta literally, people open their door and you have to say something compelling. They're gonna be closing the door. So at first I was just given a script, what to say. Second was where to find these people, like what website to go to. And then the third was a leave behind. If no one was home, I was supposed to leave this pamphlet. Well, I didn't have any training other than that. So I got a lot of doors slammed in my face. And shortly, because I would rush up to the door and be like, all right, I'm going to help you introduce myself and say, I'm going to help you out of your unfortunate situation. Well, again, a lot of doors slammed in my face. So my cousin Mike and my dad then flew us out to California, to San Diego, to shadow the #1 person in the country that was having success with these pre-foreclosure doors. So once I saw his approach and how much it differed from mine, how nuanced it was, how everything was spot on. Like, for instance, rather than just go right up to the door and knock on it, he would take a few steps up the stoop, do a light jingle, and then take a few steps back, and then they'd answer, and he'd say, hey, I don't know if I have the right address. I'm not sure. Can you confirm something? And he would show them his clipboard and listing their name and the notice of default and everything like that. And then once they saw that, they lit up. They opened up. It brought their walls down, and they told him what they were doing. I mean, let's be serious. This was back in 2005 and 2006, what they weren't doing to fix a problem. So I learned that, and then I implemented it right away, and I started seeing a lot of success. And actually, we owned, in this particular city, we owned several properties for years after I graduated from high school. So I know it was successful because the whole goal was to buy properties. So we did that. So you kind of go forward. Actually, let me take a deep breath and I'll just let that sit, see if you have any questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot to get into there. I think it all starts from, you went through a lot. That's 2 years of just a lot, right? And it's a lot of testing yourself personally and immediately immersing yourself in one of the hardest jobs in business, which is door-to-door sales. But I just want to kind of bring it back to what you learned from your experience of the unfortunate event of your brain injury and how that kind of helped your base. And it seems like you're the type of individual that no matter what happens to you, you don't spin stuff into a negative, you spin it into a positive. So, and that's one of the best ways to be successful in any type of career, right? Any type of entrepreneurial journey. It's going to be hard. Any journey that you're on is hard, and you're going to get hit with so many barriers, so many tough situations. But as long as you can look at it with optimism and spin everything into a learning lesson and how to take that next step forward, the step process that you broke down, it's all about taking each step forward and continuously learning and building yourself up. And I did just want to quickly ask you, which mountain was it?
It was Wachusett.
Oh yeah, because I grew up in Connecticut for some time, and I actually used to do ski club out in Wachusett, and I can tell you, yeah, conditions there are some of the worst conditions ever. I actually broke my wrist. I broke my wrist, both my wrists, going over those same jumps on that terrain. Yeah, not as bad as what happened to you, but I can relate that those
This is
that terrain park is dangerous.
Wait a minute though. This is a detail that I don't think I've shared maybe once before because usually it's not specific. So you know what you said. Well, the thing with that terrain park, the jumps weren't made right. They were made for basically beginners that could just go up to the top and drop down to the landing. So I hit the jump like you're supposed to with speed.
Yep.
And I cleared the landing, and I landed flat bottom. So that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Went really fast off of it and hit the jump and realized like this landing zone it's not good. So then I ended up falling forward, put my hands out and broke my wrist. And I was like, Jesus.
All right. Again, things come up differently on each show. I've never shared that.
It's crazy. That's funny. Yeah, that's a relation that we have there going through the ski club. So I know exactly where you're coming from. But yeah, I just want to like dive into obviously having that low point. I would call it a low point in like a rock bottom in your life and building it back up from that. Other than breaking down the step process that you had, like what was your mentality? Did you always have the mentality of just pushing forward and always persevering anything before that happened? Or did that kind of set you up to have that mindset? And how do you relate that to kind of starting your real estate career with the door knocking? Like, did that correlation or situation help you in that? Because door knocking and stuff, I always tell people like to get the best experience, get into sales. That's something that is door knocking. It's door-to-door salesman, or it's even like showing into businesses, trying to sell product to them, because you're going to get a ton of no's, but every single no builds thicker skin, and it just teaches you how to reapproach the sale next time. And yeah, I just wanted to dive into that a little bit more of how your mentality changed throughout that and how that kind of helped shape your career and the start of your career getting into real estate too.
Sure. And I think the step system and what we went over, and I'll get to it later because I know we have enough time, but like we went over how long we have at the beginning. I'll talk about it later, but the step system has always just been inside of me. So it's always been just how I was raised. So how I was raised is like you keep going forward. You just keep doing what's next. I mean, even after running out of the hospital, as I said, I had to continue outpatient rehab, but even after finishing outpatient rehab, I went on my own because I didn't just say, oh, okay, I'm done. Mm-hmm. I went on my own to a local physical therapist and started getting additional exercises that I could do to build up my shoulder that I fell on and injured myself on. So it's just like, that's an example. The reason I share that is just an example. You can always keep improving yourself. And that's just a mentality that was instilled in me from when I was little. So that's really where the step system comes from. I'm so fortunate. We're so fortunate at Common Goal that I'm able to share this with the rest of the world and other individuals that have gone through a brain injury or are going through some traumatic injury, life crisis, anything. Help them get through to the other side so they're able to thrive with the rest of their lives.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing again is just you and yourself and how you can persevere. And I mean, if people go through those injuries or situations, the medical care can only help so much. But like you said, there were situations where they want to protect you, but sometimes protecting you could also defeat the purpose of what you're trying to gain as your goal. So like whether they're trying to give you more medication to make you more calm, like that could actually be a con because it's going to allow you to not try to move and progress forward. And then no fault to the medical industry. They're a business. They have to care. They have to. Yeah, it's what they were taught. I mean, I was a medical industry for a while, and that's one of the things that I hated about it is that they're just very protective of the patients. But like my goal when I was CNA for a little bit, trying to become a physician assistant, obviously I didn't go that route, but I wanted to like get it to the point that the patients could get out of there, like get out of where you are, get out of the rehabilitation center. You want to get on with your life, right? But some of the medical care kind of makes it so it delays that. They push them as much. So it really all comes down to you and how you can really take control of your life and push forward. And I think you're a perfect example. And it's an amazing story that you have showing that you can do anything that you put your mind to. And even if you're in one of the worst situations, which is a traumatic brain injury, is I would say one of the worst, you can push through and defy all quote unquote reality of what people expect and basically create your own miracle. And you running out of that hospital just shows that. And being able to carry that story and bring it to people just helps people see that you can do that in any aspect of life, especially your career and business. So I want to jump into more of the real estate aspect of this. So you started with door knocking, which is, yes, a lot of slam doors in your face, I'm sure. But when you went to that conference,
I have stories for days, outrageous stories that I can't even share
I bet.
on podcasts. I told them to my cousin Mike. We definitely share a bond with that. We're able to talk about those stories.
Oh yeah.
But it was good training. I did that throughout the rest of my high school, and then after I graduated, I started studying to get my real estate license, and then I got my real estate license in March of 2008.
Oh,
so,
perfect timing, right?
Yeah, great timing. So right as the world was crashing, if you will. But I didn't know any better. I didn't know any different. I mean, it took me 3 times to pass my real estate exam, to get the real estate license. It took me 3 times. So the first time I went, just to give you an idea, was, let me see, a pretty full room of other people taking the test. The second time I went, there was less, maybe a total of like 5 to 10. And the last time I went to take it, I think I was the only one in the room.
Yeah.
just like a sign of the times. But I started working and helping buyers and sellers. To me, it didn't matter, just because that was the market. Everyone else would be complaining, oh, it used to be so easy, it used to be so good. I didn't know any better, so that's what I was dealt. I didn't look at it as a negative. So I was able to support myself and help buyers and sellers and everything like that. Then at the end of 2014, my dad started buying properties. He actually started buying properties in 2013 creatively without using any of his money or his credit. So I'll give you, just because it's a real estate show, I'll give you just a few examples. Like, a few of the ways he would be buying is, one, on a lease purchase, so basically a delayed cash sale. The second is he would actually close on it and buy the home subject to the existing loan, and then if they didn't have any debt on the property, he would structure principal only payments and close on the home and do principal only payments. So those are just to keep it high level and let you know like how he was buying. So he was starting to buy these in 2013. He started, and then by the end of 2014, he was like, oh shoot, I need help with getting these marketed, like not the conventional real, like list it with a realtor market. I'm talking the rent to own market, which is a bigger pool of buyers, because then and now there's only a small percentage who can walk into a bank and get a loan. So like 18%. So he wanted to market these homes to the other 80 or 82%, and he needed help with that. So he asked me. I first said no, but he kept asking, and then I said yes. So I started working with him at the end of 2014, and then marketing all those homes turned into, oh shoot, I can't keep up with all these calls that's coming in from the marketing, all the buyers coming in. Can you help me with that? I said, sure, I can do that right alongside being a realtor. Well, over the course of 13 or 14 months, my income shifted, where I was at the start, I was making up to 80 and 90% of my income as a realtor, sales, helping buyers and sellers. Then over 13 or 14 months, my income shifted, where I was making the majority of my income with him as an investor. So in January of 2016, I let my real estate license go, joined him full time. And then what that allowed me to do, Wendell, is over the course of the next year, 2 or 3, I started to develop a buyer process, a very particular process that we have to put these buyers through to make these rent-to-own buyers, to make sure that they're successful and that they get to the end and they're able to get their own loan. So because of that, and the whole reason for that is we started having a lot of defaults because we had no process. So we kind of brought us back to the table and the drawing board, and we're like, well, we got to change something. We got to start having a particular process that we're going to put these buyers through. So we did that, and now to this day, there's probably industry average, and you can probably attest to this. There's maybe 10 or 20% of rent-to-own buyers you put in rent-to-own homes are successful and get their own loan. Where we see the inverse relationship. Up to 80 or 90% of the rental home buyers that we put into our homes do get to the end, do cross the finish line and get their own loan and complete the deal. That's because of all the pre-qualification, the systems, tools, and processes. So we started having a lot of success doing this, just our family business. And then we started to be asked to branch out to other associates all over the country who we now work with, as well as our own deals, to basically partner with them and help them implement the same systems, tools, and processes that have made our business successful. And that's still what we do to this day. And since I joined my dad in 2016 full time and let my real estate license go, we've been holding events. So we've been holding probably 1 or 2 events every year. And usually at those events, I'm able to tell my story of my snowboarding accident along with helping the buyers. And ever since I got out of school, I've always had this voice in the back of my head that's always saying, yeah, okay, great, Nick, whether it's door knocking, as a realtor, sales, anything, saying, yeah, okay, great, Nick. But what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping like crisis or trauma victims through their trauma, get through to the other side, and then thrive with the rest of them, so that they're able to thrive with the rest of their lives. So that's always been here. However, I thought I was satisfying it by telling my story at our events, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm doing it. So it got quieter. Not really, though. I mean, it was in 2019 at our event, September 2019. I share my story, and that was the longest that I had shared my story before. I thought it was a huge deal. I was like getting ready for it and rehearsing it and everything. I thought it was a big deal. It was maybe 15 or 20 minutes, me telling my story on stage. And then someone approached me after, and they said, I was still going through which I don't think we have time to talk about today, but if you'll have me back, I can certainly go into detail on the voice challenge that I had. I was still going through the final throes of my voice issue. I developed a voice issue in 2012, and it was almost like it was hard to get the words out. That's kind of how I sounded. There was a lot of tension there in my throat. So when I gave this talk, I had a lot of tension in my voice. So this woman gave me her card and said, if you're ever looking to fine tune your message and bring it to another level so that you're able to have maximum impact and help the most amount of people, I can introduce you to a few coaches and mentors that have helped me along the way. Well, I wasn't ready yet because I was still, like I said, going through that voice issue. However, I always hung on to her card. And then the voice just kept getting louder and louder. I finally reached out to her in May of 2021. And I said, okay, I'm ready. Who should I talk to? What should I do? Well, she introduced me to one of her mentors that became my mentor and coach. And since that first call that I had with Trisha, there has been no voice in the back of my head. So what that's evidence to me is I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. And I had that call with her. I shared with her what I was looking to do. And I said, do you think that's possible? And she said, absolutely. I said, okay, what do you think I should do? She said, the speaker salon. I was like, what's that? She said, you commute to New York City with up to 10 other speakers for 6 weeks in a row. So every Wednesday for 6 weeks in a row, you do this. And you get to be on stage at the Triad Theater in New York City and work on talks and get my live direction and feedback to make it better and better and better. And then on the final week, the 6th week, you perform that talk for influencers, TEDx organizers, event planners, podcast hosts, people who book speakers to speak. So she said, that's $25,000. I said, yes. Like I was able to pull that together, pull that off. And I said, yes, absolutely. So during the speaker salon, Wendell pitched the idea of what it would look like to work with her one-on-one. And she said that she specializes in working with speakers to help them build out their speaker platform. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what that meant. However, now I do. And I'll share a little bit more about that. So she said to work with me one-on-one is $75,000. I said, I don't have that underneath my mattress.
Yeah.
So, you're going to give me a week. And I went and applied for financing, sent her the money 6 days later, and I've since paid that off. And it means so much to me because prior to her, I was maybe talking for 10, 15, or 20 minutes max.
Yeah.
Now I speak to brain injury associations, organizations all across the country and other organizations that support individuals that are going through crisis or life challenges to help them get through to the other side. With my keynote, I give 50 and 60-minute keynotes, all without notes, and not like it's all in my head. I would have, if you would have told me this, that I would be doing this back in 2019, I would have told you that you were nuts. And now I know Trisha did pull out the step system. The way that she did that is she said, all right, you have this great story that you got a snowboarding accident, you were in a coma, and then you ran out of the hospital. How'd you do it? I said, I don't know. I just got up every day. I kept working and I just kept going. And I eventually got there. And she goes, no, not good enough. She kept asking me like 7 layers deep to a point where I was frustrated. I was like, I only had like 10 calls with her total, what I paid for. And I think I ended the call early because I was frustrated. However, I'm so happy I did because that's everything that I'm doing now. That's the step system. So she was able to help me birth the step system, which led to the step video series and also 50 and 60-minute keynotes where I get to teach the step system and a lot of funny stories from the hospital. So I couldn't be happier where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, so it just goes to show that like whatever is, I guess, nagging or like giving you anxiety usually is something that I relate it to anxiety, because anxiety is usually or being anxious or just feeling like something's off. It's because you're doing something that you know subconsciously that you should be doing. And for you, it seems like speaking and helping people that are going through what you went through is the number one thing that gives you meaning and fulfillment and what you feel and know that you have to do within your life. A lot of people have that feeling and don't ever take the next step or execute, to do it or pursue it because maybe they get imposter syndrome or they feel like that shouldn't be what they're doing or they're not like good enough or like they aren't like worthy or whatever. But it goes to show that it doesn't matter about any of that. It just matters about taking the step and doing what you want to do. And as long as you take that step and just move forward and take the quote unquote risk, I guess, you can end up living the life that you were meant to live, which is, again, it just shows that your story and what you do and what you have done just shows that anybody can do it. And it's amazing to hear that. And it's amazing to know that you're doing it now and providing so much back to people that are in the situation that you were in back when you went through those times. And just to bring it back to real estate a little bit, because I'm sure the audience wants to learn more about this too, because for lease to own, it's kind of it's a niche type real estate strategy, but a lot of people don't really understand what the pros and cons of it are. So if you could break down kind of the pros and cons of lease to own and what you have to deal with and what it really looks like compared to just having a rental property or just doing a fix and flip, like what's the pros and cons of it? And also what's the scenario that you're dealing with? Because what you're essentially doing is you're now the bank and you then have to pre-qualify these individuals that can't really get loans from the bank to purchase the property, but you are giving these people an opportunity to get a home, like fast track their way to a home. And in that journey, you're helping them build their credit. You're helping them get their income right. You're helping them make sure they don't have too much debt. You're helping them prepare to eventually get a conventional loan or some type of loan to purchase the property that you guys agreed upon at a predetermined price. So yeah, if you can just go into that a little bit more of the pros and cons and just the difference of that compared to other real estate strategies and why you guys like to focus on that.
Yeah, there are several things. So right off the beginning, what I can do is just give you and your listeners kind of the process that we like to put our buyers through. So all of our homes go for a down payment of anywhere from 3 to 10% of the purchase price. And we want to make sure that all of our buyers have that down payment. And we understand the reality of it, Wendell, that not all buyers are going to have that 10% upfront down payment. Mm-hmm. That's ideal to give them the best chance of being able to become mortgage ready and get their own loan. However, we need to see at least 3% initially. So every property is different. The amount of interest in every property is totally different. Every property goes for like a different level. So one could go a total of 5% down payment, one could go 7%, 9%, or a full 10%, or even more than 10% down payment. Regardless, though, the buyer has to come to the table with at least 3% down. down. And then we'd like to see them have a plan to work up that down payment with several lump sum deposits over the course of their term, so that by the time they do come to the end, they're that much more likely to be able to qualify for a loan. That's number one. And then during our process, we actually get, prior to meeting with them, we actually get them over their screening. It is a tenant screening, but we never like to refer to it as a tenant screening. I just hate using that word tenant with them, because we treat all of our buyers as if you're buyers. Like a tenant buyer, we treat all of them as if they're buyers. So they're taking over maintenance, responsibility for maintenance, repair, and upkeep, and then any improvements that they make to the home over the course of their loan term, and subsequent increase in equity that's occurring because of that, that's their benefit and not ours. I mean, we've on average had buyers close with $60,000 to $80,000 worth of equity, meaning that the property appraises for $60,000 to $80,000 more than what we sold it to them for. And even more recently, we've had buyers do over $100,000, get $100,000. So once they close, so that's pretty huge. That's pretty important. The process that we like to put them through, that's kind of the main reason why we're able to see success with that.
Yeah. And you basically help coach these individuals that might not be able to purchase property now with a conventional loan, maybe because of their credit, because of the current debt that they have, they just can't get a loan amount to purchase. And you make sure that they're set up on the right step-by-step basis, maybe even implement your step process with them in a different sense, right? To make sure that they reach the goal, and the common goal, just bringing in common goal again, is that they purchase the property.
I love your word choices. Yeah.
So
bring it all together. So I found that kind of our standards and that we're asking for our rental home buyers are even stricter, a little bit stricter than lenders. So the lenders have actually said to me that we actually have a few lenders that we've developed relationships with and we've worked with that said to me, gosh, Nick, I love the way that you do rent to own as opposed to that you guys do rent to own as opposed to every other investor out there. Because every other investor out there is very rarely taking a down payment, and then they're using the monthly payment and saying a portion of that is going towards their purchase of the home. It just makes it so confusing for lenders. There are so many variables that come into play that us, the buyer or the lender, is not able to control. Like it has to be within a certain range of market rents, and then they can only use a certain percentage. Like it's an absolute nightmare. But the way that we do it is we're having a down payment initially, and then we're having scheduled down payments over the course of 24 months, lump sum down payments. So totally separate from their rent. And that makes it really easy in the underwriters and the lenders' eyes when they look at their ledger and they see that, okay, they made all their rent payments on time. They made all, and they match it up with the contract. They made all their scheduled deposit payments on time. They've been in credit repair this whole time. Why wouldn't I give this person a loan? So we try to make it as much of a no-brainer as possible for the underwriters and the lenders once they get to the end.
Yeah, and that's important for banking nowadays, because in this market that we're in, the banks are, I would use the word, not scared, they're just more critical on everything that they look at for loans because of how the market is currently. So the better that you can kind of almost do their job for them and just lay it out Barney style and be like, this is what's going on, this is where it's going to be in 24 months, and then this is the loan amount that they will want to buy this house at this point in time. And we'll take care of all, like showing that they paid the rents, showing that they paid the down payments that go towards the principal of what they're going to purchase the home for that we agreed upon, and then lay that all out for them to give to the lender. You're not only helping the lender, but you're helping the buyer as well, because you're providing everybody just a roadmap for the buyer to purchase that property. And I think that's an amazing thing, especially in today's market, because it's so hard for first-time homers to purchase a home. You're fulfilling a ton of needs here. You're helping banks understand the rent-to-own process, which can be super confusing. And like you said, usually only 10 to 20% work out, because most rent-to-own people don't have an established process like you guys have. And a lot of rent-to-own...
They don't care. They don't care. If they evict them and they get out of the property, or they, whatever, just can't buy the property, they're able to do do it again and take another down payment. So, but we have an altruistic view of it that we want to make sure everyone succeeds. And that includes us, the buyer, and the seller.
And that's the way to do it in real estate. It's just in any business, any type of entrepreneurial journey, a win-win-win situation for everybody. And unfortunately, there is people out there that take advantage of these type of systems, like you're explaining there, like rent to own. Yeah, you can let anybody go rent to own, take a down payment, know that they're going to miss payments. You don't care because then you'll just evict them and just redo the process again. Like that's just not the right way to do it. And I believe in karma, and I believe in you put out good energy back. And anybody that does it that way, which is like, I think it's immoral. I just don't think they'll ever be successful long term. But the way that you guys do it is the way that every real estate investor should look at investing, because you're providing a solution to people and you're helping them and you're putting out good energy, good karma. And it's not only going to make your business better and thrive more, it's going to help everybody involved in that process just do better. And you're giving back to society in a way that people don't understand. Like you're helping individuals that, who knows, they may have never been able to buy a home, and they may have never in the future, they could have never bought a home without you guys' help. But by giving them an opportunity, you're giving them a better life, which in turn, this is where I love, like what I look at, like the social sphere as like a web of influence. By you helping one individual family buy a home, right? That's going to allow them to get better in their life, and then throughout their family and their close friends, they can teach them. And then you're not only helping that one person, you're creating a domino effect within society, which just makes society better. And that's what people don't look at. They don't look at the big picture. So I love that you do that. And I think it stems from just everything that you've gone through, and you just look at the world and you look at society and you look at helping people with an amazing point of view that a lot of people should take in consideration and definitely learn from you about how to look at business, how to look at living your life, and how to look at persevering and just moving forward. So I love that. And we are running a little bit over time here, so I just want to slowly wrap it up. But I do like to ask you a few more questions, quick questions. I'll call it like the lightning round, I guess, but a little quick questions I'd love to just have you input on for our listeners. And one of them is for a new investor that's trying to get started in real estate investing or any type of entrepreneurial journey, right? What is the biggest piece of advice you would give to anyone that wants to get started on something that maybe is nagging, like you said, in the back of their head, that's telling them like, this is what you're meant to do? What is that one piece of advice that you would give to just put them over the edge and take that step forward to start implementing and executing on that?
So I think research is important, but only to a certain point. Like I would find and the reason I say that, so I'm biased. I think our niche is the best, like creative real estate on terms, as we like to call it. However, I'm not naive. There are tons of other niches out there. There are tons of other ones out there. So whatever it is, you should find a mentor that's actively doing deals and not did deals 20 or 40, 20, 30, 40 years ago and is teaching it. Mm-hmm. You should find a mentor that's actively doing deals like us and then lock arms with them. And that's the same thing that I did to launch my business. I found a mentor and locked arms with her, paid a lot of money and made a commitment and locked arms with her.
Yeah. And I think
that's what I recommend.
Yeah. And like people don't realize that mentorships this could be some of the best things to help you launch your journey, but they could also be not a good thing if you don't research the person and understand that, and make sure that they're doing it today. Like there's a lot of social media gurus out there that are saying like, oh, buy my course, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. And they've never done a deal, or they've done one deal and they're like, oh, I knew how to do that. Let me just make a course now. You want someone that has been doing it consistently for the past like 5 years, have a ton of experience, and is looking to just give back and help you out as a mentor and are still doing it today. So that's a great point that you brought up. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to fast forward past all of like the learning curves, all the mistakes that you could make that could financially actually put a halt to your journey. It allows you to kind of hurdle those because you have that mentor that has run into those issues numerous times before. So if it comes up, you can go to your mentor and be like, what do you do in this situation? And they'll help you through it. And rather than you figuring out yourself, which could take a long time or financially really disrupt your journey, it helps you get over that and just build stronger and faster. So I love that you brought that up. And I love that you brought up that you need to research it. You always need to research it. Don't always just pull the trigger on people that are mentors. Research, ask them what they do.
To a point, because there are a lot of people who get stuck in analysis paralysis and like, oh, well, I got to learn more. No, you don't. You have to do something at this point.
Yeah, you can only learn so much. The second that you start, like say you listen to podcasts or read books all the time about real estate or whatever, the second you read a book and it's saying the same thing again, that's probably the time that you have to execute. Because a lot of books books are pretty much the same. They just say it in different verbiage. You just got to go. Like, you can read, research all day, but the best way to learn is by executing and learning as you do it. And yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but that's all part of the journey and it's fun. And speaking of that, I want to kind of get your take on any type of podcast, books, or even your like real estate coaching type stuff. Like, what are some things you would recommend for people to go to get some of that education, to research a little bit and then make that leap if they haven't even started researching it, but they're interested in it?
Sure. Yeah. No, great question. So if anything, what we talked about, buying and selling homes on terms creatively, we'd like to call it on terms, piqued anyone's interest, you can go to our website, smartrealestatecoach.com. Again, smartrealestatecoach, all spelled out, .com. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can get registered for the free master's class that's going to teach you all about, beyond what we talked about today, all about how we buy and sell creatively and on terms, we like to call it. And then by the end of it, if it is something that you're looking to do, because it's not a good fit for everyone. However, if it is for you, you're able to take that first step. Then if there's anyone out there that about my story and what I shared about the step system truly resonated with you, and you want to download the step system, because what we talked about is only like a 10,000 foot view of the step system, you want to go to my website, nickprefontaine.com/step. That's going to teach you all about support, trust, energy, and persistence. And especially if you're stuck, it's a great first step and that you can take today.
Love it. Love it. And you just answered my next question, which was basically, was there anything you wanted to tell the audience of how to meet you, any events that you do, charity events, business links, where to find you, contact? But I'm going to put all the information in the bio as well of this podcast. So if you want to reach out to Nick, you'll have all the access to be able to. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on today, Nick. It's an amazing story that you have. And it just goes to show that having optimism, perseverance, and always thinking that putting the next in front of the other to get to where you want to be is just the best option and the only option. And you're living proof showing that you can do whatever you put your mind to, starting from having a traumatic brain injury to not possibly being able to walk, talk, or eat again, to running out of the hospital and now doing real estate investing, now doing speaking engagements, to keynote speaking events. There's 50 to 60 minutes. It's amazing to hear that. And I think people will find this podcast and this episode just super informative and kind of give them confidence to take that next step in their journey. So I thank you for coming on, Nick. It's been amazing.
Oh, this has been a lot of fun, Wendell. Thanks for allowing me to tell my story with the listener.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for listening. That is the end of today's episode, and we'll see you next time.